What's up, guys? We are back with another Bandai Tamashii Nation's SH MonsterArts review, taking a look at the mascot, I suppose, at this point, for the entire franchise. We're taking a look at the Monster Hunter Rathalos figure in this absolutely massive, massive box. This thing is so much bigger than I was expecting it to be, and I am really excited to tear into this guy. So we've got him here, again, in a big, monstrous, no pun intended, box with a matte finish. You've got a big glossy spread of the Rathalos here on the front. We do have the Japanese name on the box itself, the Leoleus or the Rioleus, and then on the sides you've got a kind of volcanic looking shot of the Rathalos, and the back has a bunch of product shots showcasing how he can move, all the stuff he comes with, and then you've also got, similar to the Nargacuga, a claw window to showcase the figure within. So cool presentation, just like the Nargacuga, just in a much bigger format box. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our SH MonsterArts Rathalos, another entry in the Monster Hunter line, and something that at first glance is maybe a little bit intimidating, just like the Nargacuga was, although this one maybe a little bit more so. It is, however, very, very easy to pose and to play around with once you really get your hands on it. So let's take a look, see what this guy can do, see how it moves around. Before we talk about that, though, I do need to mention that this big fella was provided by Bluefin for the purposes of review, but we have got a very, very interesting figure, toy, whatever you want to call it here, because it moves almost intuitively. I mean, it moves exactly how you might expect something like this to move, so I am very much happy with what we have got here. We'll start with the head, which is one of two areas that I am most excited about, just the possibilities and the range of motion here, because this thing just moves really, really well, honestly. You can get it to look up really nicely. It also moves side to side really, really well. I mean, the range of motion there is pretty wide reaching, but my most favorite aspect of it is this, where you can get it to look, I mean, almost straight down from like a flying or a hovering position, to where you've got it all in conjunction with the ab crunch, and then just those plated aspects of the neck and the various ball pegs, because that's what this is a series of ball pegs. You can get it to look down really, really far, so it's basically like a looming, imposing presence, especially if you've got it on the stand, which we will talk about here shortly. You've got twist all along this head, and then of course you've got twist at the actual head itself, and you do have an articulated jaw. So it does have a lot of posing possibilities just within this very neck system that you're looking at here. It moves really fluidly. The only thing that I've encountered is that you might pop one of those ball pegs out from time to time. Just pop it right back in though. No real muss or fuss there, but he does have a lot of wide-ranging possibilities just right out of the gate at the head. The torso is a ball peg as well, so you've got some twist motion here. You've got a little bit of tilt. It's mostly used in conjunction with the neck to allow it to sort of loom forward. So there is a pseudo crunch here at the ball peg, and then it allows him to sort of rear back up a little bit as well. It's not the most dynamic joint, but it's actually a lot more functional than it might seem in conjunction with the rest of the figure. So it's useful into getting him balanced, but it's also useful to arc that neck in conjunction with the tail to make him just stand up and be really, really imposing. So it helps to rear him back, but it also helps to lay him flat and then use that neck to keep his head crooked upwards in a more kind of like offensive position. The legs are very familiar territory when it comes to moving them around, just based on the fact that I've messed around with that Nargacuga recently. But this guy does move pretty well. So it's a ball peg, so he kicks his legs outwards. There is a bit of a twist there, and then you can kick him forward and backwards slightly. You do have a knee hinge here, and then you've got what would be kind of like a secondary knee down here for a twist, and there's a series of ball pegs down here at these legs. You've also got pegs down here for the toes, so they hinge forward and backward, and then all of these claws can rotate a little bit as well. So it does help for stability. Like, this guy can support his own weight on these legs. There's no real need to have him hoisted up on the stand unless you truly want him to be. So he does work as far as just supporting himself and being able to put him into slightly more dynamic poses on the ground, just based on the fact that everything is quite sturdy. Now for the arms and the wings, these are, I mean, they're kind of what you might expect, honestly. They move in and out at the shoulder, and then they do, of course, spin up and down. So you can get them to be flat, or you can let them to be sort of reared back where he's in flight, or more of like a defensive posturing kind of thing. There is an elbow joint here, and if you pop this middle wing out a bit, it does help to move it around a little bit more. So there's a little bit more range. It's mostly just to sort of shimmy it around. It's not necessarily because he needs an elbow. It's just sort of there. This outward wing, well, it's not a wing piece, a wing segment is ball pegged, so it will move around to aid in sort of covering gaps and things like that as well. So there is a lot of plastic here. The plating that they've got here does work really well. There are other pieces that we'll talk about for the wings here shortly, but they do work really nicely. They aren't overly large, they aren't overly heavy or anything like that, and they very much work really well in terms of just posing him, getting him into certain positions where he's kind of flattened down like that, or where he's sort of reared back on his legs. And then the last part of this guy, which is the second thing that I like the most on this figure, is the tail. So just like the head is segmented and has a lot of posability, so does the tail. So it allows you to sort of like crook it underneath that like a stinger, and then you've got possibilities to go all the way up. I mean, that range right there alone is pretty wild. It's very, very far reaching. And then of course you can twist it from side to side. You can sort of rotate it a little bit as you go. You've even got the stinger here at the end, which is articulated, so there's various segments throughout this tail just to add a little bit of flair, make it a little bit wavy depending on how you want to do it. But it's all about this, the ability to crook it downwards or crook it upwards, that I absolutely love, because it adds a great deal of character and just flair to any pose you've got when this guy is in the air. Now, as far as the overall look and feel, this is pretty much the area where I could just say, well, take a look at it and decide for yourself, because honestly, this thing looks freaking awesome. There's really not much more to say about it. I think they did an absolute superb job with just about everything here. There is, just like with the Nargacuga, but again, to like a much higher degree, there is just detail over every square inch of this thing. And I say it's to a higher degree because this thing just has more to it. It's covered in scales from head to toe, and on the top side of the figure, it's just a huge scaly mess. It's a very stone-like look and feel. The wings are incredibly impressive. I mean, you can see right here, they're very large. I will do a comparison to the Nargacuga and some other stuff here shortly, but the wings are quite big. I really like the sort of sandstone look and feel there with as far as the coloring. You've got these hints of red underneath with this sort of patterning with the darker brown. There, of course, is a great deal of shading all underneath the chest, and then just the face itself looks really imposing and very like raptor-like almost. And I say raptor like a bird of prey, not a dinosaur. So it's, well, I guess that works in both ways, doesn't it? But it does look fantastic. There's just a nice, menacing look and feel to it. The sculpt is tremendous. The paint all over it is fantastic. And then, like I said, the back side or the top side, depending on how you want to describe it, is where the real business is, so to speak. There's just a ton of detail all over this thing. There's more of this red patterning. You've got all these spikes that come out of the wings, and you've got these big claws all over them too. So it's just a fantastic looking piece. I really dig everything about the plating. And that's kind of a thing when it comes to MonsterArts, is how it's all put together as a series of plates for a lot of the body work. And it works really nicely in conjunction with the fact that these are scales. And then of course it all sort of terminates in what I think is maybe my favorite aspect of the entire design, is this crazy tail with all of the spikes coming out of it, the big stinger at the back that looks kind of like a rock almost. There's just a great deal of detail all over this figure that really is accentuated by an exceptional paint job. There's a ton of varying colors and shading all over it, from the browns to the blacks to the various reds, all over it. It's just, again, covered in detail, and I think they did a tremendous job with pumping this thing out. I'm really happy with the way it looks. I'm really happy with the way it feels, and just, again, the level of detail on this thing. I mean, it should have a lot of detail because it is an expensive piece, but it does look fantastic, even for the line. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that of the two, the Monster Hunter figures that I've looked at so far, this is the one I like the most, just because of the fact that it looks so cool on its own, and Bandai did a great job translating that into plastic. And then here is our size comparison real quick, just to give you an idea of what the big guy looks like next to the Nargacuga. And you can see that, they very much fit together. They certainly go together size-wise, but they are still quite a ways apart when it comes to overall size. The Nargacuga almost looks small by comparison. He's definitely not, but he almost looks that way. And then we've got the bonus Hunter that comes with the Nargacuga. This is kind of like a first release pack-in for the Nargacuga, and it's scaled to these guys, so you can see what that little dude looks like next to both of them. Now, as far as accessories goes, this thing has a handful for the actual figure itself. There are some replacement parts, and then you can see we've got an effect piece there. But a lot of what's in this box is actually this very robust and elaborate stand. I can't think of a stand that's had more parts since maybe the Figuarts Shenron a ways back, but this thing does work really well as far as just supporting the Rathalos and keeping it from coming, crashing down. So to start with, let's talk about the parts that the Rathalos has to sort of change them up. We've got the effect part here, and it's just a little bit of a translucent orange plastic for a fire effect, so you can have him breathing fire. It's not a blast or anything, but it looks sort of like, he's getting ready to throw down, which I do actually like this quite a bit. So it just sort of sits in the mouth just like that. And then he's got a few other replacement parts. So most of the wings can actually come apart. The middle section and then these end pieces here can actually come apart. And the Nargacuga had something pretty similar. So you've got replacement wings that are a little bit more splayed out, these inner wings here. And then we've got these big guys. So you can actually pop these on in place of those middle ones, and then you would flare out this one to give him a much wider presence on your shelf. So this is likely how I'm going to display him. Pop these in there, and then you can display this much bigger wing section just to make him look a little bit larger and more imposing. So you've got those options when it comes to actually changing up the look of the figure. But what about this crazy stand? So this thing needs some attention on its own because, again, there's a lot to it, but it works really, really well. It might take you a minute to figure it out, but it works quite well. So you've got various struts here that hold up specific parts of the Rathalos. These pieces hold up the wings when it's in that position that I just showed you. This piece actually wedges into the plates on the back, and then this piece cups the tail. So this is on a ball peg, so you can sort of angle it a little bit just to keep things as ratcheted in place as possible. These guys actually move down, and then what you can do is you can take this one out and take the front part off here and put it here, and then you can put the Rathalos in a more crouched down position where its wings are flat and they rest on this, and then the chest of the Rathalos sits on this. So it does give you two options as far as how you want to display it, which I'm very happy with. It does work quite well also. So, you get to pick and choose how you want to display it. You may not necessarily need this if you want to have it just on the ground standing, but if you want it in the air, this stand, while kind of big and a little bit elaborate, it does work really well, and I have had no issues as far as stability. I can't imagine this thing is coming down once it's up there. He is very much locked into place. So this is a very welcome addition to this release. So yeah, this is pretty much the same situation I had with the Nargacuga. When it comes down to it, if you're a fan of the property and you want a representation of the Rathalos on your shelf, there can't be much of a better way to do this when it comes to having an action figure, an actual posable toy. This thing moves incredibly well. It has a great shelf presence. The sculpt is fantastic. The paint job on it is tremendous. He comes with a solid array of accessories. The stand on this guy is pretty tremendous, especially to be able to have him hoisted up in the air with ease at all times is a really fantastic inclusion. And I just like the way it looks. That's really what it comes down to. It looks fantastic, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and I'm really enjoying where this Monster Hunter line is going. I'm really curious to see what more will come from it, but I'd say for now, this guy is the star of the show. So that's going to do it for this look at the SH MonsterArts Rathalos. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.